So I lived in Pakistan for 3 years. I went there for a 1 month trip and ended up living there. First we extended it 1 month, then 3 months, basically visa dependent. And then it eventually came to a non-profit visa, an NGO visa that I got from Pakistan. And then the Pakistani embassy in New York. And then I was able to keep extending that and ended up staying there for 3 years. I did non-profit work. We had emergency medical camps, and we ran a mobile health unit, all in about 5 or 6 districts of Sindh. There were a few different instances where I felt a deep connection with Pakistan based on the language, because like the very first time that I remember, I traveled to India all the time, and I don't remember ever going to a village where somebody, like everybody in the village is speaking my language, which is Sindhi. And there's an experience that I had when I was in the field. I went there with my friend Sabine, and we were both visiting a tent city. And Sabine is Urdu speaking from Karachi, and she's visiting interior Sindh. And she's meeting with a villager, and there's this very old woman. She must be around 80 years old. Reminded me a lot of my grandmother. Her mannerisms, the way she was speaking. And Sabine is trying to communicate with this woman, and the woman only understands and speaks. She understands Urdu, but she can only communicate back in Sindhi. And Sabine isn't understanding her, not because she doesn't understand Sindhi, because she does, but just I think the way, the leja, the fact that maybe she was missing her teeth, I don't know, because she was an older woman. So she didn't get it, and I got it because I grew up with it. I understood what she was saying, so while I was watching the whole exchange, I just ended up laughing at the whole thing. And Sabine turns around, looks at me, and kind of like smacks me and says, "What's wrong with you? When you know what she's saying, why don't you talk to her?" And it was like a bingo eureka moment for me. I was like, "Oh my God, that's true. I can speak it, and let me speak it." So that was one experience, as but not to do with being Indian, but to do with being Sindhi. It was a very sense of belonging as a Sindhi, a deep sense of belonging that I felt throughout the time that I spent in Sindh. Like, this is the land of my ancestors. I could feel that. So that was one. The other side was when I was in Karachi and I was speaking to people from the nonprofit sector, or from, people like Beena, people like Zarmine, people who knew that I was Indian. It was almost celebrated. Everybody was really happy to have me in Pakistan, there kind of just to be their guest, and they were the most hospitable people I've ever met. And huge buffets of dinners were served, and dawate hoti thi. And so overall, the experience, I think it's a mixed plate, because I'm an American Indian and I'm not purely an Indian. There were a lot of people that just saw me purely as American. There were people who saw me purely as Sindhi, and then the few people that knew that I was Indian were always very welcoming and hospitable, and just loved the idea of an Indian living and working in Pakistan. And similar situations linked to healthcare. Mm-hmm. And it was always like, if we could just, like, for example, one of the big problems that plagues Pakistan is hepatitis. And in Pakistan, hepatitis, people usually end up finding out too late. By that time, they're already in liver failure. Pakistan doesn't have transplants. It's not readily available, liver transplants. At least when I was there, it wasn't. I don't know if things have changed since then. But transplant medicine and transplant organ transplantation is not looked upon very keenly in Pakistan. There's a lot of misconception. People I think religiously, they think that it's haram, and whatever. There's a whole bunch of other things that are involved in that. And I always wondered, and I did hear it too, a few cases that would go to India to seek care. And not only with regards to hepatitis, but regards to, just general, like, medicines, and having natural disasters happen in both countries, and being able to have a big healthcare exchange. These were conversations that we always had. And I felt like, if we could share medicine, if we could share knowledge, if we could actually cross borders and help heal people with difficult cases that India does have access to and Pakistan doesn't, that would solve a lot of problems. I mean, India could end up being a hub for a lot of countries, neighboring countries, Pakistan included, Nepal, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh. All of these countries could be part of a union together. India would actually be the central hub for that, and that could open up a lot of cross-border trade, not just healthcare. For me, it's healthcare, and it was specifically healthcare, but I think it would help the people too, as far as educational opportunities, economic opportunities. I think it could open up a lot of gateways and doorways. If we were to look at things beyond the lens of national boundaries and religious boundaries, we have a lot more in common than we do separating us.
Right.
Europe can get along, and all these countries with such large cultural differences, like France speaks French, Germany speaks German, and the Scottish, well, they speak English, but I mean,
kind of.
good luck to figuring out what they're saying. But I mean, if they can all get along and work together in union and be a part of the European Union, why can't we? When there's so many of us that still speak the same language. Like I said, there's much more connecting us than there is separating us, if we can just look at things through that lens. And if we could try to be more like the European Union, or emulate ourselves to be that way, maybe we would be in a very different place.
Yeah.
Economically, health-wise, education-wise. I think it would impact a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.